Once upon a time, there was a man named Henry who lived in a small village surrounded by lush green forests. He lived a happy life with his wife until one day she suddenly passed away. Henry was heartbroken and he buried her in the cemetery on the outskirts of the village. Days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months, but there was one strange thing that was bothering Henry. Every time he would visit his wife's grave, he would find a bear sitting next to it. The bear would simply sit there and wouldn't move an inch, no matter how much Henry tried to scare it away. Henry couldn't understand why the bear wouldn't leave, and it was starting to give him the creeps. He confided in his friends, who suggested that he talk to the local forest ranger to help. The ranger listened to Henry's story and decided to take a look for himself. When the ranger arrived at the cemetery, he was shocked to see the bear sitting next to the grave. The ranger approached the bear cautiously, and to his surprise, the bear didn't move or show any signs of aggression. Then he realized what was wrong. Hey there, Viral Videos here. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button and click the notification bell. We post the most beautiful, amazing, and scary videos every single day. Let's proceed with the video. Before we get to know why the bear refuses to leave the grave, a bit of backstory is needed. A year ago, Henry sat quietly in his rocking chair, staring out the window at the beautiful sunset. The quiet of his home was only interrupted by the gentle creak of the chair as he rocked back and forth. He sighed deeply, as he often did, thinking of his late wife, Sophie. Henry and Sophie had been married for over 30 years, and they had built a life together filled with love, laughter, and adventure. They had traveled the world, climbed the mountains, and explored the depths of the sea, always side by side. But now Sophie was gone, and Henry was left alone in their cozy cottage, surrounded by memories of their life together. He missed her terribly and often found himself lost in thoughts of her. Henry picked up a picture of Sophie from the nearby table and traced the outline of her face with his finger. He remembered the day the picture was taken, a beautiful summer afternoon spent on the beach. They had been so happy then, and it seemed like a lifetime ago. Henry sighed again and placed the picture back on the table. He knew that he would never forget Sophie, but he also knew that he couldn't live in the past forever. He needed to find a way to move forward, but for now, he just wanted to remember the good times and cherish the memories of the love of his life. He often found himself going to the graveyard to pay her a visit almost every day, but it was a Tuesday morning in March where he experienced something really weird. Henry woke up early every morning, determined to make the most of his day. He would have a cup of coffee and then set out on his daily walk to the graveyard. It was a 30-minute journey through the forest, and even though it was tiring, Henry looked forward to it. He felt closest to Sophie when he was visiting her grave, and he cherished these moments of solitude and reflection. As he walked, he would take in the beauty of the forest, the sounds of the birds singing, and the rustling of the leaves in the wind. The forest was dense and filled with a variety of trees and plants, and Henry often stopped to admire the different species of flowers and ferns. He was amazed by the resilience and beauty of nature, and he felt a sense of peace in the midst of all this chaos. As he neared the graveyard, Henry's heart would start to beat faster. He would quicken his pace, eager to reach his destination and be with Sophie once again. The graveyard was a peaceful and serene place, surrounded by towering trees and a high stone wall. It was the final resting place for many of the villagers, and it was a place of reverence and respect. Henry would spend hours at the cemetery sitting on a bench next to Sophie's grave, talking to her and reminiscing about their life together. He would tell her about his day, the things he had seen on his walk, and the people he had met. He would also listen to the silence, feeling Sophie's presence all around him. Sometimes Henry would take a book with him and spend time reading and enjoying the peace and quiet of the graveyard. He loved the sound of the pages turning and the rustling of the leaves in the wind, and he felt like he was in a world of his own. He was always surprised by how quickly the time would pass, and before he knew it, it was time to head back home. But on this day, there was no room for quietness, as he heard loud growls nearby Sophie's grave. Did he see that right? There was a bear standing right next to her grave. He was shocked and couldn't believe what he was seeing. He had never seen a bear in the graveyard before, and he didn't know what to do. He got a little bit worried. In recent years, there had been a growing concern about the impact of human activity on the bear population in Canada. As human populations continue to grow and encroach on bear habitats, there have been an increasing number of bear-human conflicts. This has left to call for increased education and awareness programs to help reduce these conflicts and protect both humans and bears. In addition to human activity, climate change is also affecting the bear population in Canada. This might be the reason the bear had to move to the graveyard. Henry stood frozen, not wanting to startle the bear, but at the same time he was afraid of his safety. He slowly backed away and made his way back to the village to call the forest ranger. The ranger was familiar with the area and had encountered bears before, so Henry felt relieved to have him on the scene. When they arrived at the graveyard, the bear was still there, standing guard over Sophie's grave. The ranger was able to get close enough to observe the bear, and he noticed that it looked very thin and weak. The ranger and Henry were amazed and couldn't understand why the bear was behaving this way. They decided to keep a watchful eye on the bear and monitor its behavior, hoping to understand why it had taken up residency in the graveyard. Over the next few days, the bear continued to visit the graveyard, always standing guard over Sophie's grave. Henry and the ranger would visit regularly, watching the bear and trying to understand its behavior. They were able to get close enough to observe the bear. As Henry and the ranger continued to observe the bear, they noticed that it was acting differently. It was no longer just standing guard over Sophie's grave, but it was also patrolling the area as if it were searching for something. One day, while they were monitoring the bear, they noticed that it was acting agitated and restless. They followed it and watched as it led them to a small clearing in the forest. They were shocked to see two small bear cubs huddled together in the clearing. The cubs were weak and malnutritioned, and it was clear that they were in need of help. Henry and the ranger realized that the bear had been mourning the loss of its mate, but it was also trying to protect its cubs. The cubs had been born during the winter, and their mother had died, leaving the bear to care for them alone. It had brought them to the graveyard in search of food and protection. Henry and the ranger knew that they needed to help the bear and its cubs. They set up a feeding station for the cubs and started to bring them food and water every day. They watched as the cubs started to grow stronger and healthier, and the bear became less restless. Henry was filled with a sense of satisfaction, knowing that he was helping the bear and its cubs. He felt the connection with the bear, and he knew that Sophie would have been proud of him. He continued to visit the cubs every day, watching them grow and develop. As the cubs grew stronger, they started to venture out into the forest, and the bear gradually became less protective. Henry and the ranger knew that it was time for the bear and its cubs to return to the wild, and they watched as they disappeared into the forest. Henry was filled with a sense of sadness as he said goodbye to the bear and its cubs, but he was also filled with a sense of hope. He knew that the bear and its cubs would be able to survive and thrive in the wild, and he felt grateful to have been a part of their journey. Henry would always remember the bear as the guardian of its cubs and the protector of Sophie's grave. He would always be grateful for the impact that the bear had on his life and the memories that it had created. The bear had helped Henry to heal and find closure, and he would always cherish the time that they had spent together. What did you think of the story? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, like the video and subscribe. See you next time.